So January, pretty chill month, right? Like nothing major happened, nothing crazy that made it the worst month almost ever. Right, okay. Hi, welcome to today's video. I'm going to be recapping the books I read in January, which, for being a horrible month, was actually a really good reading month for me. I kind of slayed. I don't want to kind of toot my own horn, but I did read 11 books, and that is a lot for me. That's more than I read in any month in 2024. So we are back on our 2023 grind. We are not socializing. We are not playing video games. We are not thinking about world issues. We are reading books. Let's go. Okay, so in January, as I said, I read 11 books. So I'm just going to go through them, tell you my thoughts, and yeah, let's just get going. So the first book that I read in January was The Women by Kristen Hanna, which is actually a book that I said I wanted to read in December or before the end of the year, and I didn't, okay? I finished it on January 11th. I don't even think I started it in 2024. I think I waited till 2025. But what a good book. This so far has been the best book that I read this month out of all of the 11 books, so we are starting off very, very strong. The Women is Kristen Hanna's book set in Vietnam and is telling the story of a nurse that was in Vietnam and kind of all the horrible things that have happened in her life. Because at the end of the day, it is a Kristen Hanna book, so everybody will suffer. This book came highly, highly, highly recommended by multiple people in my life, and they did not let me down. And I would like them all to know that I was wrong, they were right. I should have read this 6 months ago. I think this potentially might be my favorite Kristen Hanna. It's between that and The Great Alone. I might have to reread that and then come back and see what I think. But I really enjoyed the storytelling, specifically in Vietnam. I thought that story was very interesting and told very well. And from what I can tell accurately, after having watched MASH as a child. Of course, it's a Kristen Hanna book, so it's very emotionally impactful. Of course I cried. Obviously I cried. This book touches on Vietnam, the 60s, race, feminism, sadness, men being scumbags, of course, as well. But yeah, it's just a great read. Everybody read it last year, but if you have not, I would say go for it. The next book that I read was actually finishing a reread for my personal book club, and in January we read Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This was my pick to kick off the book club. This was not a democratic pick. This was just me being this is what you guys like, let's pick one. It wasn't everybody's favorite, but I still love it. It's a very whimsical book. It's set in a universe where all of the books are magical. Well, not all of the books, but there's magical books. And our main character, Elizabeth, is a librarian. And she gets kind of wrapped up in this whole conspiracy. And I just love it. I find it so cozy. Yeah, not everybody in the book club loved it, but guess who did? Me. And guess whose video this is? Maggie's. So in this channel, we love Sorcery of Thorns. It's just so fun, and I feel like I'm always going to enjoy it. It's just a cozy experience. The next book that I read in January was The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This is my third Lucy Foley book. I've had a real hit and miss experience. I loved The Wedding Date, or The Guest List, it was called. Loved that. Hated The Paris Apartment. I hated that book. I don't know what was wrong with it, but I was just not vibing with it in any way, shape, or form. I think I almost DNF'd it, but I persevered, and that was one of those instances where I should not have persevered. But this book I enjoyed. It's set in the Scottish Highlands. It's about a friend group that goes to this remote castle in the Scottish Highlands, and murder ensues. Of course, it's a murder mystery. It's trying to give and then there were none, and unfortunately, you're never gonna give Aggie. There's only one Aggie at the end of the day. But this did give me wintry vibes. I read this at the beginning of the month, and it's set between the period between Christmas and New Year's, which is a spooky time. So perfect for a murder mystery. What I liked about this book versus Paris Apartment was I felt like the tenseness was built up better, and tenseness may not be a word in the dictionary, but is a word today. The environment that she was able to build, the feeling of suspense was really well done. I really didn't like any of the characters, which I think is good in a murder mystery because one of them's gonna die. Just a bunch of people being fools and then dying. So, sure. Sign me up. Okay, the next book that I read was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in the Narnia series. And this is actually by C.S. Lewis, if you guys didn't know. I'm going back and healing a little bit of childhood mistake. So when I was a child, I was purchased the box set of Narnia, and I never read it. I tried reading The Magician's Nephew like 4 times, and I was like, this is so boring. When do they meet Aslan? And they never, well, they do meet Aslan, but it's like way at the end. But they're like only 4-hour audiobooks. So I've just been kind of like picking through them this winter and listening to them when I can't find an audiobook. I don't know if I will continue reading Narnia. I actually think I liked this one less than The Magician's Nephew, because at least I didn't know what was going to happen. And it's like, at the end of the day, it is a children's book. Like, it's a very children's book vibed. You know what I mean? Like, Harry Potter is a children's book, but by the time you get to the 3rd book, mama, that's a romp. Narnia, not so much. And the religious overtones are a lot stronger than this one than in the movie. But I am sat and prepared for Greta Gerwig's Narnia. Let's go. She's taken a religious text before and made it cool and fun, so let's do it again, Greta. The next book that I listened to in January was Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar. I don't know what possessed me to read this book. I did not watch 19 Kids and Counting at all as a child. I didn't really watch much reality television, except for Search for the Next Pussycat Doll, because I'm not a fool. But yeah, I never watched 19 Kids and Counting, not very privy to the Duggar family. However, I do know about the multiple scandals of the evil brother. So I was like, I'm sat and I'm ready to listen to Jill Duggar tell her story. It was a unique look into a once-in-a-lifetime life. I mean, there's like 19 of them that had the same life, but I think they all kind of had different takeaways. But so Jill Duggar grew up in this uber religious family. They got a TV show. And then in her mid-20s, she starts to kind of leave the family so that she can have her own life and family. And Pee-Pee can be involved in it. That's so nice. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to leave her be. Yeah, so this book is about her life and then her leaving kind of her super religious upbringing and kind of her family as well. Her dad was like very financially abusive, I would say, and you know what? Verbally abusive as well. So this book actually started a little January trend for me, which was reading memoirs and engaging with content about leaving religious sects. So yeah, I enjoyed it. So the next book that I read in January was For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten. This book almost took me out. I started reading it like early December and I just like could not get through it. I picked it up because it was listed as a book similar to One Dark Window. And like, in what way is it similar? I guess it's fantasy, but like it's not the same at all. It's not even the same vibe. The romance isn't as good. The fantasy magic system is not as good. I did not really like this book. I think this is probably my least favorite book of the month. Yeah. What was going on? Why do people think this is like One Dark Window? It is supposed to be, like, I thought it was a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood because her name is Red. And the cover of the book, if I show you here, she's wearing like a red cape. So you're like, well, there must be a Red Riding Hood retelling. It's not. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So the premise for this book is that there's any daughter born to the royal family, the first daughter becomes queen, and the second daughter becomes a sacrifice to the wolf that lives in their woods that are their god. So pretty understandable, chill, cool thing to do. So we follow the second daughter who is going to be sacrificed to the wolf. And yeah, it's very Beauty and the Beast. There is Stockholm Syndrome. I cannot picture what this man actually looks like. Is he a tree or is he a man? I don't know. I just found that this book was like, I would get into it. I would be into the romance or whatever. And then I would be pulled out by tomfoolery. We would go to this other perspective of the other sister. And I'm like, what is going on? It wasn't even that complicated that I should have been confused. I just feel like it was just all premise and style and no substance. I was not interested in the plot twist or the cliffhangers or the relationships or the characters or the setting. So I didn't like it. In summary, just don't like it. The next book that I read in January was The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. What a fun time. What a fun time I always have with Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I have been reading the Inheritance Games trilogy series now. Like, I've read every book. Is it diminishing returns? Of course it is. Of course it is. But you know what? The Grandest Game kind of like brought back what I remember loving about the first Inheritance Games books. Because we are not following Avery anymore. And I was so sick of her. So sick of her. I'm so sick of Jameson. I do not care about Jameson. But my boy Grayson is in this book. And we love that. This book is, if you read the Inheritance Games and got to the end, there's no way to explain the plot without spoiling. So at the end of the Inheritance Games series, Avery decides to take part of the money that she's earned and give it away in a game, like a trial. So we are set in one of the trials, and we're there with Grayson's stepsisters, some random old lady, enemy that's a man, 2 random men, and Grayson. Right? That's who's participating in the challenge. I just had a great time reading this book. I kind of ate it up, actually. Like, I wasn't going to sleep when I was intending to. I was reading it before bed, and I just kept staying awake and reading it, which is so fun. And, like, I enjoy doing that. Doesn't happen often. But I feel like she really knows how to write a quick book. Like, it's when she's doing, like, big character stuff that I don't love her books. But when she is just flying through the plot and we are doing puzzles and we are solving, I'm so locked in on Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And this book is great because we are back in that world of secrets and quickness and puzzles and riddles. So that was a lot of fun. I'd recommend it. You definitely won't really understand anything if you don't read the first books in the Inheritance Games, like the Hawthorne Brothers kind of series, and this is an offshoot just about the games. So the next book of this is coming, I think, this year. I am excited. So the next book I read was Home and Away by Mats Sundin. Now, if you do not live in Toronto, or Sweden, you probably don't care about this book, and that's okay. Mats Sundin was the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs when I was a child. He, I think, has the most points of any Leaf ever, if I remember correctly. And he served as captain for like 10 years, I think. So he's kind of like the Maple Leaf that I grew up with as a child. So I have a lot of love and appreciation for him and all that he did for Toronto Maple Leafs, being a fan as a child. And I loved this book. I thought it was so fun. If you're not a fan of the Leafs, I really don't think there's much here for you. It's very sports focused. It's not like, I'm an athlete, but this is what I learned along the way. He does learn things, but it really is just kind of a recap of his whole career. You get a bit of his childhood and a bit of retirement, but it really is just him going through like all of the years of his hockey career, talking about it, talking about big games, disappointments, and his mindset through all of it. I loved it. I'm a sporty girl again. I've been feeling very sporty this month. So I went to a hockey game. I went to see the Toronto Scepters, which was a hoot. And I'm just like really getting back into my sporty girl vibe. I grew up playing hockey, grew up playing sports. It used to be a huge part of my identity, and it's kind of not anymore. So I've been enjoying reading memoirs about hockey. If your dad is a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, you should get him this book. He'd probably love it. So the next book that I finished in January was Dinner for Vampires, Life on a Cult TV Show by Bethany Joy Lenz. This book is about Bethany Joy Lenz, who was on One Tree Hill and was also in a religious cult for the whole time she was on TV. This was, as I said, my continuation of my escaping religious sect journey that I'm not on that journey personally, but I'm on the journey of reading about it. So it's a memoir. We start off with her as a child. I don't remember much about her childhood. Mostly what stands out to me is her talking about the cult that she was in. And I find it so wild that she'll tell the story at the end and people will be like, that's not a cult. I was like listening to this audiobook shaking my fist at these people for being so evil to her. So pretty much she joined this Bible study and kind of got indoctrinated into this like family because she wasn't close to her mother or her father. They got divorced. They lived really far away from her. And she was looking for company. But yeah, so she joins this cult. A lot of bad things happen to her. Like, a lot of awesome things are kind of like teed up for her based on her hard work and success. And then the cult just takes it all away as a form of control. And that was the hardest part to hear. Her talking about all of these opportunities that she had been given based on her success on One Tree Hill and her singing ability. And then the cult's like, I don't think you should do that. And you're like, girl, you could have had such a good career. But now she's doing her best. She's raising her daughter. She's got a podcast. Hey, let's hear it for podcasts. But yeah, it was very interesting to look into the life of someone who was very successful, but was like brought into this family. And while having all these things, this power, money, success, she was still being controlled by these people. So it was super interesting. If you're a fan of One Tree Hill, I'm sure there would be added layers of it for you. I never watched One Tree Hill, so I don't have that perspective. But even still, like the 2000s of it all, the horrifying life that she lived, yeah, I would recommend it. It was really interesting. She does a really good job at the audiobook. She does a lot of character work. So if you don't like that in your audiobooks, I would say maybe avoid it because there is a lot of acting going on. But I feel like she was like, let me take this audiobook opportunity to show my range. And she did. And we love that for her. So I promise this is the last memoir on this list. I also read Ali Wong, Dear Girls. This is the book that Ali Wong wrote after having her second daughter. And it's kind of letters to her daughters about her life. Ali Wong is so funny. This is obviously a hilarious book. It's very interesting in retrospect because I think her and her husband divorced like not long after publishing it, which was like sad, but they seem okay. And a lot of the book is about how she met her husband, how they built their life together, growing up, and like her experiences as a woman in life, but also like being a comedian and how being a comedian has impacted her life and motherhood and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, if you're a fan of Ali Wong, you'll enjoy this. It's so funny. She's as funny as she usually is. And yeah, just a great audiobook. It was really quick. I love a memoir from a comedian. And that's never going to change. The last book I read in January was A Master of Gin by P. Jelly Clark. So A Master of Gin was the book club book for my work book club that I actually selected. I picked 2 book club books this month. That's a lot of pressure. But I picked this book based off of Carrie, like from Carrie Can Read on YouTube, her recommendation. My book club loves a sci-fi, so she said this was a good sci-fi. It's set in 1900s Egypt, which was interesting to me. It's about like a fantasy version of Egypt where a bunch of jinn, who are kind of like, let's just say wizards, they can do magic, they are brought into the world and it changes the whole course of human history. So Egypt becomes the center of the universe, like the big power. They have all this technology developed by the jinn, like they have air flight, they have electricity, they have all this stuff. And they live in this like very, very fantastical society. And our main character, Fatma, it works in the ministry that controls and monitors jinn. But yeah, so Master of Jinn, I really liked it. It was fun. We had our conversation about it yesterday, and the people in the book club liked it. And that made me feel good because last time I picked a book, no one read it. Like literally one person read it. They didn't come to the meeting. We spent the book club talking about YouTube. That was upsetting. So a lot more success this year, which we're happy to start off the year with the success in the book club. But yeah, I think this book would be great. Like, it's not that sci-fi. I would say it's kind of more fantasy dominant. So if you're not like a huge sci-fi person, I feel like you would still enjoy it. Thank you. Yes. It has some good LGBTQIA representation. We love it. there's talks of colonialism and feminism and racism. I feel like feminism wasn't slotted in there properly. But anyway, it's really cool. It's a really well built world. The magic system is really cool. The characters are like, there is some character development, but I wouldn't say it's like a mostly character driven book. It's kind of a neo-noir detective take on it. So that's kind of the premise of the book, is that we are following along with Fatma as she's doing this investigation. There is a new partner. There's a femme fatale. It was just very fun. Even though it's like huge high stakes, it does keep a lot of levity and cuteness to it that I enjoyed. It's definitely not like a high fantasy experience, but it was just a really good time. And I'm really glad that the people in my book club liked it, because it made me feel good. But yeah, this was a good month in reading. I was happy to go through what I read, and I hope you all had a really good January. I find that January is kind of make or break. Like, if you're really productive and feeling excited about reading, it can be a really fun month. But if you're slumped, like I was last year, it can be rough. So I'm coming at you from both sides. I know the struggle and I know success, and I want success for all of you. So yeah, how was your January reading month? Let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I'm gonna see if people can do it. Goodbye!